YouTube comments from a video titled, "It's Not Just You." Everyone hates Starbucks now.
At Will WB6NK wrote,
Starbucks built a large part of their brand image on being better to work for than the average fast food employer. Once corporate decided to withhold healthcare from their striking employees, I stopped going.
at Community S. Repekids wrote,
Mom and pop shops use dirty spoons and old food, and they can't afford to stay in business selling coffee. Better coffee? Could be, but it's hard making a living selling $3 coffees. In this area of food industry, I would bet on Starbucks. Other mom and pop shops can make it and stay in business, but much like a sub shop, it's hard to pay a mortgage selling $10 subs. Starbucks needs to tweak itself a bit. Mom and pop shops succeed in manufacturing and stuff. Things you retail at $500 plus. That's the only way that mom and pop shops work. I have owned one for 30 years. Resin-based casting. The food industry is tough and you must be big to earn money or become a franchise. Again, mom and pop may serve better steaks, but it's hard paying off a mortgage that way.
at Community S. Repekids wrote,
I love Starbucks, and if a problem, then like always, it is poor people. I think these inflation strikes are getting ridiculous. Y'all wanted to help people, so now you have to pay for it. Again, the billionaires can only cover 8 days of spending for the government. I predict interest rates will be at 12% in 5 years. I will gladly pay $5 a coffee to drink the best and meet with the kindest staff. Starbucks Corporation does it right. It's a shame that the so-called richest country in the world cannot afford coffee. Sad. Yet everyone saw this coming. Except for the 99%.
at Infurcos wrote,
I went into a Starbucks the other month to go to the toilet as I was driving a long distance, and the next available services was 20 miles away. I was surprised to see it completely empty. Granted, it was the middle of the motorway, but it was a good day with a lot of traffic around and also lunchtime. The KFC next door had around 20 people in. Not super busy, but that's the kind of amount I was expecting. Not completely desolate. I've been doing a lot of motorway driving over the past 2 months and have visited pretty much every major services and smaller services between Doncaster and Teesside, and they are always busy. Even when I came through one at 7 a.m. in the morning and it wasn't heaving, but every quick service food or drink place had at least 5 people inside, so to be completely empty during noon was strange. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I think Starbucks has gained a bit of competition, because 5 years ago Starbucks was the place for the pumpkin spiced latte and seasonal specialities. Now Costa, despite its similar high pricing, is seen as more sophisticated, while Greg's are doing the pumpkin spice right now, and McDonald's often have a winter drink and the hot cross bun drink, which was something, and they are a fraction of the price. I'm in a theater group with a lot of people you see walking in with their morning fix. In June show rehearsals Jan to June, it was Starbucks. Now we've been starting our new show, and it's all nondescript brands or MC Donalds. I have a feeling the kids of 2060 will view Starbucks as 2010's nostalgia, even if Starbucks is still around.
at DM9078 wrote,
I remember hearing the founder of Starbucks being interviewed on NPR Morning Edition. He was a kind of guy he would want to work for. The thing he said is stuck with me was I hear all the time from other business owners that you can't get good people. I don't believe that. I believe that if you pay your people well and treat them right, you will get and keep good people. He said a lot of other stuff about quality products, etc., but it was treating your people right that was the key takeaway. The people in charge now have obviously forgotten that. Starbucks has always been expensive. There's a Starbucks in the bookstore I go to occasionally. The menu is huge and everything is ridiculously expensive. Of course, they're in trouble.
At Lady Weirdo 6035 wrote,
I feel like a lot of regional spots have really been coming for Starbucks neck. I live in the upper Midwest of the US, and we prefer caribou up here. Less coffee options, but it tastes better and has more edible food, making it a better cafe spot. If I need something more convenient, I head to Scooters, a drive-through place where the coffee tastes fresh.
At HumbleGamer 7876 wrote,
Every time I go to Starbucks, it's about 7 to 8 months in between visits, and I remember why every single time. It's about 7 p.m. in T50 for a medium drink with no extras. You can't tell me this stuff costs more than a full-on milkshake that's 5 times the weight.
At Jafalic 3980 wrote,
Their coffee is terrible. If I let a large cup sit for 15 minutes or so, a 1-inch sludge will develop on the bottom that is bitter and undrinkable.
At Roberthopel wrote,
I've done great staying away from Starbucks, but subjected myself to buying one yesterday for the first time in years because it is the only coffee in our mall and our whole downtown. Yeah, this place is sad. I was volunteering at a repair cafe, in a library also, at the mall, and I just couldn't go without caffeine for 5 hours, so I had to get something there. Although I added a free Palestine sticky note to their sticky note board to help ease my guilty soul, and I gotta say, the timing of this video is kinda making me feel very seen. Haha.
At SuperBenji 63 to 92 wrote,
Always been a place for arrogant little rich people who don't like real coffee, but overly sugared drinks, while underpaying their employees, acting like a mafia in the coffee bean business, and with a CEO commuting to work by private jet. Trash company for trash people. They deserve their downfall and to not exist anymore.
At Ori Korea wrote,
This is somewhat sad to see. I loved Starbucks as a third place even with the pandemic. The price hikes have been outrageous though and hard to justify. The Wi-Fi has gotten worse too, which takes away my other reason to go. The end of an era, I suppose.
At Pink Princess 42 wrote,
They have not had 6 straight quarters of losses. They have had 0 quarters of losses. They have made profit every quarter. This YouTuber just lied in like the first 30 secs.
At Booma the Robot wrote,
Coffee is just like cigarettes, legalized addictive drug consumption. Unlike alcohol, which is a legalized addictive poison, it really is classed as a poison, not a drug. Look it up.
At Jamonique 41 wrote,
It's funny because my palate isn't great, so I can't really tell good coffee from bad coffee. It's getting drowned in sugar either way. I just prefer local coffee shops because they're often cuter and cozy, and I like supporting local businesses.
At Nomadic Artist P2Q wrote,
I remember when Starbucks brought their foul stench to Denver. They stole a prime spot near a college campus, replacing a mom and pop coffee shop that made the best coffee.
At myintrospective_perspective wrote,
I live in very rural KY, in a very small town. We are just NOW getting a Chick-fil-A, and they're also building a Starbucks. However, there's like 5 locally owned coffee shops around here, owned by people who live here and want to see our community thrive. Why anyone would choose corporate $8 such as Starbucks over these small locally owned shops. It makes me so angry. Support local people.
At Jessica 8460 wrote,
They closed the only Jack in the Box in a 45 minutes radius so they could open another Starbucks across the street from Dutch Brochure. I like Jack in the Box.
At D. Vaughn, and wrote,
I remember in 2010, at the corner of Old Street in London, there was this Starbucks hub, always having people in. I always just walked by. I was in this brand maybe once in my life. Not even train stations or airports will make me buy this unscrupulous brand stuff. I'll rather get caffeine some other way. I have been making a coffee at home from instant for years and years, taking with me in a flask when out and about. Some 4 pounds tub of fine ground instant coffee lasts me for at least 3 weeks or more, with about 2 cups of coffee per day. Why many spend this amount per cup, and more not familiar with prices, I don't know. The benefit is that I have no debt besides the mortgage and student loan. Living within one's means comes with benefits.
Being D 2023 wrote,
Profits down due to price for a simple coffee. They are just not worth it. Neither is Costa. People who now have less money due to government's taxes. So they stop doing the expensive places. And you can get just as good a coffee at home for far less. Costa do coffee in a jar for if get a deal £3, so cheaper than 1 cup from the shop. You keep using affordable that it is not.
At Mayacero 8772 wrote,
As good as I think Starbucks tastes, why would I buy a $6 coffee when I can go to the Dunkin' directly across the street and get a larger coffee, breakfast sandwich, and hash browns for $6?
At Timup 6340 wrote,
Starbucks is on the BDS boycott list. I prefer a local coffee shop whose owner is dedicated to as fair labor as possible in the supply chain and good coffee.
At Dragon Puppet Clips wrote,
Food isn't bad, but so pricey. A $10 gift card can't even get you a full meal that can fill you up. A drink cost almost $8 to $10 and some aren't worth that price tag. Their app is good, but the reward program is stupid. You have to spend so much just to save like 70 cents. They used to have happy hour once a week and they took that out. All they want you to do is order many times to give you back little bit of return. I remember I spent at least about $60 last year just to save $2 on my purchase SMFH.
At Paydix 900 wrote,
I see I'm not the only one who's been actively avoiding Starbucks. Most of the time I make coffee at home, it's bad enough I need to pay $10, $20 for a pound of good coffee. But when I do go get the occasional coffee while out and about, I've been actively going to local coffee shops only. So far in my experience, the prices will be similar to or slightly cheaper than Starbucks, but the coffee is so much better, and it also feels better to support a local business rather than another shitty publicly traded company.
Divjot Singh wrote,
India comes next, I suppose, and here for every Starbucks you can find a third wave coffee, blue tokai and chayos / chai point. We love our tea. So I guess India isn't working well for them either. Having said that, most Starbucks outlets in India are still very cozy and inviting.
At 68 Cameras 327 wrote,
Left after 9 minutes, no mention of in-your-face woke policies. A whole group of conservative coffee drinkers have boycotted for years. Unless you mention woke, effect, EPA conclusions a waste of time.
Droxa wrote,
16 As someone who works at an independent cafe, we call baristas that survived Starbucks employment Starbucks warriors. Sharing horror stories is a bonding experience between former SWs and those of us lucky to have primarily worked for small businesses.
At Ocean Water 6887 wrote,
When I think of Starbucks ambience, I remember sipping coffee and watching a homeless 28-year-old manically scratch the meth sores on their face, and I didn't like it.
As Sidequist Jack wrote,
As a current barista at Starbucks going on 3 to 4 years, the problem with Starbucks besides the OVS price is lack of change and work culture. Firstly, Starbucks was the first to do a LOT of what many are doing now, but seeing what independent stores are doing for cheaper, the experience isn't the same. From prepackaged food to stale products. They introduced products 1 to 2 even 3 years after the popularity had run out. In the UK, Dubai chocolate was through the roof. So what did our Starbucks do? Release a version 6 months later that had no actual Dubai chocolate and was a rebadged dry pistachio brownie. After the sales reflected the lack of interest, they halved the slice, but kept the same price. It's ridiculous. They've now released a boba-style drink to replace dragon fruit, a bestseller, only for it to be a blatant worse done version of boba 2 to 3 years after the popularity of boba. Head office pushes for drives and customer interaction, but also gives you a Bible full of rules not to step out of line. They also don't make the work culture inviting anymore. It's all about numbers and quick turnaround, which means most baristas are stressed and new hires don't want to stay. Any partner in a position of power then uses that to sit back and let the baristas do 90% of the jobs, that is, if they have enough staff. Back in the day, you would need a person on each station, but now? There are skeleton crews doing the jobs of 3 to 4 people. The workload has increased, but the crew hasn't. The prices are ridiculous and uninviting. We had to fight a year and a half for our local Starbucks beside a college to get student discount.
At Johanchuar's 9589 wrote,
As a former employee, I can say that around summer 2022 is when they really started to adopt business practices that geared more towards their shareholders and helping them earn a quick buck rather than the quality they advertise themselves as. All this at the price of cutting employee hours, reducing part-time employees' benefits, shrinking the sizes of their food items. Hell, even our allowance for the yearly Christmas party was cut completely, even after with our store had been awarded the top of the district. ALL this TOSAY, YOU reap what YOUSOW. Starbucks lost sight of the plot.
At Cherry Knight wrote,
Realized a while ago that the Starbucks by my house was charging the same amount for their frozen baked goods as the local bakery shop 2 doors down was charging for their fresh goods. Lol. I used to go and skip high school classes by sitting in Starbucks and playing Minecraft. My husband and I had many Starbucks dates early in our relationship when I was in college. A peppermint mocha and a lemon loaf still brings back strong memories of those times. I looked inside the place we used to frequent about a year ago, and they had removed almost all the furniture. Not surprised at all they're dying painfully.
At MS Jeblamatrix wrote,
Yeah, the Starbucks in my neighborhood has turned into a secondary homeless shelter. I used to go once a month as a treat, but then it started smelling like urine and people constantly asking for money. And it costs too much now.
At Dr. Scopy 2 wrote,
I love Starbucks. When driving long distances like 8 hours of driving in a day, Starbucks has, usually, clean bathrooms, cleaner than rest stops, cheap lunch. The sandwiches are only like $6 and some coffee. Really, for $10 lunch you can't beat it. Awesome. It's cheaper than fast food if you don't order fancy drinks, lol. Also, the competitors are good like Dutch Bros and others, but they don't have bathrooms, so that's a big downside to Dutch Bros.
At Sahara 7946 wrote,
Starbucks is no longer getting any sense from me since they started wanting tips here in Germany for paying with card. We didn't have that before, but now they are pushing it here, and I see no reason to tip someone behind a counter for no performance. I don't even know who makes my drink. No service at table equals no tip. From me, no money anymore at all. There are dozens of places to get the exact same drinks now.
Dao Chimu wrote,
I go to the coffee chain that has roots of getting its start in the suburb next to me. They always have a trivia question to get a small discount off your order. One day they had a question about Starbucks sizes art, and I just blurted out who TF gives a shit about Starbucks. I got a good laugh from the barista for that one.
At Mohammed bin American wrote,
A couple of years ago, I decided to stop at a local Starbucks out of curiosity, really. I had to wait forever to get a cup because they were busy filling in online orders. The barrister looked annoyed when I paid with cash. I left thinking that they really don't want people to visit their stores anymore, which actually worked quite well for me.
At low-waist high melanin wrote,
Giving up SPECs made me remember how much I love making coffee at home, and I've recently fallen in love with a specific kind of Vietnamese coffee. Wakes me up, less sugar, and no guilt attached to my morning cuppa. 820, that's no longer true. They've closed most of the physical shops in the USA. The ones inside of Target and such are still open, but that's a matter of convenience. My college serves Starbucks coffee, but I don't usually order that. I get the house blend. They are just not very good for actual coffee when coffee culture on the West Coast is a big deal. We have local choices.
at Brew05 wrote,
I reduced my sugar intake, and Starbucks disappeared from my diet. Now I go to one of a handful of local spot as a treat. The ladies there don't write BS on my cup to try to make me feel special. Those ladies just gossip with me like God intended.
at JBLegal09 wrote,
Starbucks has always been a failure in Australia because we know how to make real coffee. There's a few outlets left for the tourists, but the locals never go. We have world-class coffee made by world-class baristas. Why would we be interested in sugary American garbage?
at Benjamin Taki 7909 wrote,
I've never been the biggest Starbucks fan, but I agree with you and most of the commenters on here. Usually I just make coffee at home in the morning. If I am going to treat myself once or twice a week for a decent coffee and luxuriate, then I am going to grab my book and go to an independent coffee shop or a Cafe Nero, which is better coffee and non-antiseptic interior. There is a Dunkin' in my neighborhood that is even nicer than most Starbucks, with tables, chairs, a couple of sofas, an electric fireplace, and a big screen TV that shows the Pats game on Sundays.
at Brian Pickrell 2477 wrote,
After years of seeing giant corporations pushing out independent operators in every industry you can think of, it's interesting to see a big company being beaten to death by small competitors. I wonder if it will happen in other markets besides coffee.
at Ted_ZTH wrote,
As a die-hard Starbucks fan, I have to admit, I haven't been to a Starbucks in ages. The main reason is the price. It's simply too high. Many Starbucks now offer drive-through only, and service has deteriorated significantly. Tipping options are even more insane. Even in the few locations that still offer the original third-place service, you'll find terrible Wi-Fi, dirty and messy tables, and no power outlets. All of this adds up to making Starbucks increasingly unattractive. It's not just Starbucks. Many well-known American chains are declining, not just in the US, but around the world. I believe the primary reason is the greed of capital and management, which is destroying everything we once had.
at Durlandworm wrote,
Does anyone else feel like increasingly aggressive, confrontational, and just generally angry and unpleasant behavior on the part of the post-pandemic public is contributing to the decline of businesses that once thrived on establishing themselves as open community spaces? People avoid community spaces now because going there would mean having to deal with the community.
at CodyCast wrote,
I used to love Starbucks. I had one by my house that I'd walk to every day to get a coffee. Normally just a normal black drip, but from time to time I'd get an ice late. I stopped going when they got super political. I felt like they just didn't care about half the population. So I was like, okay then. I'm out.
at Eddie Spaghetti 54321 wrote,
I stopped going to Starbucks after I visited the old store that I used to work at, and all of my co-workers had been fired by the new manager because they didn't believe in Starbucks values and were only there for a paycheck.
at Fluffycun wrote,
Starbucks has always been overpriced burnt coffee. I never could justify their prices even in middle school. And literally the day I learned about French pressed coffee makers, I refused to get coffee from coffee shops. My only guilty pleasure coffee-wise is Monster Killer Brew energy drinks.
Epichow 9616 wrote,
Back in the mid 90s, when I first patronized Starbucks in downtown Los Angeles, a double espresso with a pastry cost you about 2 po in T00 Nowadays, that same order will cost me 3 po in T00 for the double and another 3 po in T50 for the pastry for a total of 6 po in T50. No thanks.
At Anime Girl 77 wrote,
I used to love going to Starbucks. They were super cozy. I could sit and read a book or be on my laptop and enjoy a good drink. Now why bother? The menu has nothing I like anymore. Everything I loved was taken away. The insides are no longer comfortable. There's hardly any seating. No thank you.
At Alex__low wrote,
I think people don't appreciate that Starbucks is only 40 years old. 6 stores in 1987, and a worldwide sensation by the 2000s, which is basically the exact same trajectory as Blockbuster, which was founded in 1985 and had over 9,000 stores in 2004. Seeing how quickly Blockbuster fell is a stark reminder that these companies disappear as easily as they appear. This is an overall trend with a dozen different large businesses that grew too quickly too fast and got too big, slow, and lethargic to respond to a quickly changing market.
Babe, Ethereal wrote,
Last time I went to one, they had the least amount of workers humanly possible during a rush. Plus, my mobile order took 40 minutes, and then it was terrible. I remember when my friends in college yearned to work at Starbucks. Now they overwork and underpay the employees to the point of apathy.
At Swisserminite 4306 wrote,
Turns out there's a local coffee shop 2 blocks away, and I can buy instant coffee, so no need for moral ambiguity in coffee beyond the inherent. Perhaps the business community should factor this type of pattern into their decision-making.
Declidum Nistra wrote,
I've been using down a gift card at Starbucks recently, and I gotta say I've been pretty disappointed. I can't figure out if my palate has shifted or if their drinks are really more sweet now.
As Simensicus wrote,
7 Brew can have 20 cars, and I'll be out in 10 minutes, while Starbucks will have 10 cars, and I'll be there for 30 minutes. The rewards are lame. The flavors are so boring compared to all the local places or 7 Brew. And at my local Starbucks, my drink always comes out differently. I used to love Starbucks, but they really fell off. Small business coffee costs more in my city, but it's so much better.
At Kojiro Sasaki 6200 wrote,
Starbucks has been too corporate. The result is a degraded product. There is an owner-operated cold brew place that opened a block away from my local Starbucks. The cold brew place is by far making superior coffee and cheaper. Haven't gone to the Starbucks since I discovered the cold brew place.
At Polarfarina 2726 wrote,
In Portland, when I was growing up, Starbucks felt a lot more indie than it does now. Pre and even a bit post 2008, every Starbucks that I went into with my mom was decorated differently. They would have a ton of people inside using the Wi-Fi and sitting on weird and unique couches. One really big deal to us, I recall, was their partnership with iTunes. My parents have always really loved music and supported Apple in the early days since the 80s. So when they started putting out little business cards with a free single to download on iTunes once a week in most Starbucks stores, my parents became big fans for a long time. The Starbucks and Apple of today would both never be caught dead giving away so much for free. That's one big sign of the difference to me. These days, there's usually better alternatives to both companies, and even my parents can see that.
At RB5078 wrote,
I used to go to Starbucks 4 or more times a week, not because it's fantastic coffee, but it's good enough, and it's on my way to work. It was part of my morning routine. I haven't done that in years because my $4 coffee became a $7 coffee. and because where I live they shortened their hours. I work night shift, so I would stop in the evening. They used to be open until 10 or 11 p.m. and now they close at 7. Edit. In my 20s, back in the 2000s, my friends and I used to hang out at Starbucks all the time. Either inside or at the tables outside. I have so many wonderful memories of that. I would even go by myself with my laptop to do schoolwork or just redesign my MySpace page. They don't have seating outside anymore and just a single uncomfortable looking table inside. It's no longer a cozy place to hang out. It feels like they want you to just grab your stuff and go. Edit 2. I live in a small town and we still don't have any other coffee shops. It's Starbucks or MC Donald's for coffee here. So I just make it at home.
Zero wrote.
Starbucks can always say they were truly the very best in customer experience. Only a few can say that they were the very best undisputed. And Starbucks was a standard for me. I would compare every other place too as far as experience. However, as you stated, a lot has changed over the years, and I'm thankful for the great years, but yeah, those are gone. I will say this though, I could have put up with everything the price hikes, the changes and how they market design the places. Everything. What truly changed and ruined Starbucks is that they started hiring anyone, and that job is not for everyone, and the customer service and attitudes up. The barista and workers at Starbucks these days is some of the most deplorable I've ever seen, and it's crazy because you keep going back after some of the incidents, and you're just like, why do I keep going back? Well, for true coffee aficionados, here's the truth: they have one of the best draws in the industry. And I dare any barista out there to challenge me on it. I've been to mom and pops, upstarts, chains, and maybe Bixby's can have the same draw, but not as consistently and not near as good. Short half-calf espresso campana. Rest in peace. Starbucks, you will always be the standard when you're at your peak.
At Comic Nico wrote.
I cannot afford their prices to begin with, and then there's the tip jar. I remember once listening to a young woman tell me about her troubles while I was on my lunch break at my job. The bartender should have been there, but was off in the distance chatting with her friends. This woman eventually gave me a check for $500. Tipping is for extra effort, and this intention should come from choice, not out of obligation or guilt. Today, it seems like tipping is only about a person's income.
At Flaming Basketball Club wrote.
Here's why Starbucks really deserves the hate. 1. Overpriced drinks that are more fraudulent than the current FIFA president Gianni Infantino. 2. Providing financial support to the IDF. 3. Better quality options. Side note, Business Wars podcast literally did a more detailed series on the Starbucks decline.
At Obi-Wan YouTubin wrote.
Getting the credit card machine pushed in my face in the drive-thru with the comment, "It's going to ask you a question," is what did it for me. Huge price, and tipping in drive-thru is crazy work. Never going back again.
At Pickle_Panther wrote.
I'm not one for sweet coffee aside from the occasional caramel latte or something. Starbucks black coffee is straight up burnt ass water. That's why all their drinks contain 300 milligrams of sugar to mask the taste. Also, that shit is way too expensive. Especially in this economy.
At Scubes FTW wrote.
It never really took off in Australia. They had to relaunch a few times. Some people like it, but usually 18-year-olds. There's too much competition here. Macca's drive-thru kinda fills the hole.
At Peter Burns 7348 wrote.
10 years ago, Starbucks' main competition was WeWork. The people sitting in the restaurant all had their laptops open and were just doing work from someplace other than an office. Ironically, the one cardinal sin in the Milan coffee bar culture Schultz fell in love with was you never talk about work.
Daniel Carlick 539 wrote,
Their actual coffee is horrific. Go into a Starbucks, order a plain black coffee, take a sip, and proceed to spit it back out into the cup. It's that undrinkable. I'll take a cup of bodega coffee any day of the week. Also, here in New York, there's 1.5 million decent coffee shops. Blank Street is bland but decent. Even Cafe Grumpy is starting to nip at Starbucks' heels.
At Cruisership Support 4502 wrote,
Starbucks' largest shareholders are primarily large institutional asset management firms, with the Vanguard Group, BlackRock, and State Street being the top holders of Starbucks stock. The Vanguard Group holds a significant portion of Starbucks stock, often through its mutual funds like Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. BlackRock holds a large stake in Starbucks.
J. Scott Hamilton wrote,
I was one of the first participants in Starbucks' loyalty program. As the benefits dropped and they essentially turned it into a one business debit card, I lost interest. Their absurd price hikes for drip coffee was the clincher. From being a regular, I turned into a boycotter, having not been back in years. If they disappear, they will not be missed.
At Coca-Cola 7845 wrote,
I remember when Starbucks would offer you for here or to go and give you a ceramic cup to drink out of if you were staying in the shop.
At Dale Dude 66 wrote,
They want to be both a RD three-wave coffee spot with pour-overs of single origin roasts and a McDonald's, and are becoming a shitty version of both.
At Miles Gray 3470 wrote,
They did the same thing as Subway. They opened so many locations it no longer felt special and people started taking these stores for granted. Also, the low sugar trend has really hurt their sales now that people know just how bad their drinks are for health. On top of that, middle and lower class people have less disposable income. 3 big negative factors.
At R. Mason 502 wrote,
I just went to my local coffee bar for the first time since it opened in July, and it was so refreshing to get a good latte in such a historic and gorgeous building. Starbucks coffee is just too bitter.
Sanjuaro wrote,
At least here in Chile, it's much better to go to a normal cafe than Starbucks if you want a nice coffee. That way, not only is the coffee cheaper, but also better subjective opinion, of course, and you get the added bonus of being able to order a nice sandwich and dessert. I know Starbucks has that last part too, but it's more expensive and not as fresh. I mean, come on. I have a cafe close to where I live that's marijuana themed. I'm not getting that from Starbucks Jajaja.
A Jam YQ 9GD wrote,
Last time I had an espresso from Starbucks, it gave me inflammation so bad that I accidentally pulled a muscle in my back. No telling what sort of pesticides and herbicides and other poisons end up in their drinks.
A Buried in Time wrote,
It's always been terrible coffee. They absolute burn the tea out of the beans, so every coffee drink they make is like a bitter scraping off a 20-year-old Mr. Coffee pot.
A Steiny Mini wrote,
I feel like a huge issue with Starbucks that no one is talking about is quality control. Whether it was the seasonal summer skies drink occasionally having rancid tasting boba, maybe from a lack of refrigeration or freshness, to the varying amount of milk ratios being added to chai teas, coffees, or pink drinks, I personally got tired of paying for inconsistent products. Not to mention they have discontinued products that did well enough to go out of stock frequently.
At Silly 2084, R6P wrote,
I told my local Starbucks I needed to use the bathroom in privacy. I can't pee with anyone else in the room. They changed the code and made it to where no one could enter until I'm done. It was so nice of her. But the next DIY, very next day, there was a new door, but with a big window on it. So that was the end for me.
At Duckdo 1987 wrote,
I used to like Starbucks and proud I live in the city where it all started. Over the years, I just make my own coffee at home and go to Starbucks when my family wants to go there when we are on vacation.
Crimicat 117 wrote,
Starbucks partner here. I work at a shop in Dallas, and our clients are basically upper/wealthy due to our area. People waste a lot of money on these drinks without giving a damn, and the company 100% intends to milk them as much as possible while not compensating us partners. Thankfully, my store unionized as we fight for our contract, but many other stores/partners aren't but fortunate. Starbucks is the most corporate non-corporate job I've ever had, and it shows especially with interactions with upper management.
Jeffrey 1954 wrote,
I'm a Starbucks barista, and I sort of secretly wish that my store could have been on the chopping block, as I'm totally fed up with all the corporate language that needs to be used every damn day. Wish I could just start up my own cafe at this point. We'll have 10 drink items instead of 100, and you can only modify your beverage in like 3 ways max, and it will all be less than $5 and give you an actual third space to hang out. We'll have our reward system on a punch card. Every time you get 10 punches on a card for your purchases, you get 1 free beverage. People crave and need this sort of simplicity in our ever-growing complex society. Starbucks doesn't get that anymore. They said they were simplifying their menu by removing unpopular items, and then they just replaced those with like a dozen new drinks instead. And now they're pretending to make this huge push to be the premier American hospitality service. It's all BS. I can be polite with you, but I'm not going to lie and act like I want to be friends with everybody who walks through our doors. I've never been about that, nor will I ever be about that. As soon as that becomes a prerequisite, I'm out.
Malden 7 wrote,
I've always found it odd that you would make yourself get up significantly earlier just to wait in the drive-through line for expensive coffee over brewing at home with an auto-timer-enabled machine, which is like a standard feature.
Valmer Siglia wrote,
The problem was always fundamental. They tried to standardize coffee shops, which are inherently eclectic. The good ones, at least. They made a glorified fast food chain and tricked the public for a time into thinking it was somehow something better. Luckily for me, I live in a town that's always had a strong coffee culture, New Orleans. There are 9 coffee shops within a 10-minute walk from my front door, 2 literally within a minute, each one completely different from the other, and that's how it should be. There's also a Starbucks around the corner. But whenever I walk by, there are always 2 or 3 people in their tops.
SFC wrote,
Not a single mention of BDS or the genocide in Gaza or Starbucks' wildly illogical and aggressive lawsuit to suppress pro-Palestine speech. No mention of the broader problem of labor abuse and how the lawsuit sealed Starbucks' fate among millions of people of conscience all the world over. Jesus Christ. What a colossal fail on your part. This is tantamount to apologia and is misleading to your audience. It also does a huge disservice to the Palestinian cause. My question is, why did you clearly decide to omit these details about the most visible and well-known damage to the Starbucks brand in recent memory?
Ptolemy 91 wrote,
As a fan of actual coffee, I've never liked Starbucks because it always tastes burnt. The only way to redeem it is to add a bunch of cream and sugar, but then you can't taste the coffee anymore, and the drink is super unhealthy.
Tails the Wolfcat wrote,
I used to go to exclusively Starbucks for coffee in the US, mostly for its convenience and familiarity. Then I moved to France, and let me tell you, outside of Paris, Starbucks is non-existent. I missed it solely for the ability to get a little treat and go home with it. I started boycotting it years ago for multiple known reasons, but still miss the ability to get a chai latte or iced drink easily. I was thrilled when a local cafe opened up near me that sells coffee to go.
Ed Archeronic wrote,
I went to get a PSL, and it was $10. I was like, what? If it was $4, I'd be there all the time, but I'm not coming back for a $10 cheap latte, I'm sorry.
At PinkRose0910 wrote,
To me, Starbucks was always a special treat. It has never been something to buy daily or weekly. Maybe if someone has a higher income, they can justify the cost of one drink equaling a cheap meal. I can't drink what they sell at MC Donald's though, since it's not non-dairy. As far as fancy drinks go, like lattes or frappuccinos, they do sell good tea too. It's fine for a birthday treat or a special day out a few times a year. It's definitely a small luxury item and not a necessity.
And Nick wrote,
I went a lot less after they destroyed Tavanna, then stopped going when they all had the music so damn loud there was nothing relaxing about it. Oh. I also got tired of them having a drink I loved, then suddenly, they didn't have it anymore. There is a nice local shop by me now that was a bank. Lots of space inside, and they use it well. Chill with friends, phone, laptop, and schedulable study/meet rooms. Need third spaces to come back.
At James UD3NS wrote,
Starbucks putting out space across a store that sells a 1PO in T99 drink is a type of stupid I did not think I would see in the real world.
At Ianorden5250 wrote,
I think the quality of the coffee matters a lot as well. A place called PJ's opened up near me that has a similar model to Starbucks, but their main selling point is having really good coffee beans and custom roasts. Their menu is relatively simple in that most of their items are just coffee and some form of milk/creamer, and that's it. It's all delicious, cheap, and low calorie. You feel like you're getting coffee and not a glorified liquid cake. After making that place my go-to, I can't go back to Starbucks anymore without noticing just how bad their actual product is. I don't want to have to order a 300 plus calories of sugar and cream just to make my coffee taste good.
At CaneFeme4154 wrote,
They have kicked me out of the store 4 times in the last 5 years, and I have been going to Starbucks for over 20 years. Your Starbucks has lost its way.
At Omnimetric84 wrote,
Starbucks kind of forgot that it's just not that hard to make delicious coffee drinks at home, at a fraction of the cost, and without the surly, condescending service.
At Wetbadger2 wrote,
I went to Starbucks for the first time in over a year, and it had no tables, just dirty sofas against the wall. It was a large, empty grow space, but the drive-thru was busy. I asked where the tables, and said they got rid of them because people stayed and worked too long.
At ACC4670 wrote,
If they would have stuck to their business plan and cut back a few stores, weathered it out, people would have come back. But now we have options and Starbucks isn't worth it for the price. I used to really love just going to Starbucks, gaming on my laptop with free Wi-Fi, working on projects, hanging with friends. The environments were always super cozy. One of my favorite ones had an upstairs seating area and a fireplace. But now, there's no place to go back to. I miss socializing or when you and friends would meet up somewhere to just chill for a while and be together.
At Lopoa126 wrote,
Now we have fascist snowflakes throwing fits and assaulting employees because they won't write down the name of a racist transphobe. They do love to kick out black people.
Cro-Magnon wrote,
COVID really killed Starbucks, for me at least. It used to be my third place when I wanted to get away from roommates or even just other distractions at home. But now that there's a deadly endemic illness, there's no reason to hang around in a room full of strangers if you can avoid it.
At its Tristan1ST wrote,
Focusing on very overpriced, but intensely marketed products only works for a short while. Then customers move on to the next hip and happening fad. The targeted customer base is fickle.
At George Moore 3622 wrote,
Starbucks sucks. If Americans think Keurig is the way to do coffee, there is little hope for a company that pretends to serve good coffee and instead overcharges for coffee that could have been made by a Keurig machine.
At Princess Java 42 wrote,
When companies get this big, they lose sight of what made them successful. I don't think endless growth is a good thing, and I would like to see more companies staying in their lane, so to speak.
At Mamub 4276 wrote,
The iced chai used to be my fav drink, but times are tough. I have had to cut out eating out because I don't want to drive up my credit.
At Juan Gonzalez, JW3HX wrote,
Maybe if they didn't want to charge $8 for a damn refresher. Like, get a frappuccino, they're more labor intensive, etc., etc., but a cup of damn juice for $7 to $8. I remember a few years back I'd get 2 Trentas for like 9 PO in T45. Now it's at least $13, and that's before lemonade or coconut milk. Honestly, I used to spend so much money at Starbucks. I used to go every day. Now I barely go once or twice every 2 weeks.
At Monoclesquid 9667 wrote,
Basically, the only people I know who choke down Starbucks are suburbanites with no better options. If you live anywhere with anything of a community hub, there will be a real coffee shop with better coffee that hits the exact feeling Starbucks failed to.
At Jerusalem Artichoke 3 wrote,
It's very clinical and has an aura of Seattle Metropolitan. Costa is my go-to purely for its unpretentious and Venez comme vous tes vibe. Cafe Nero is my personal preference due to their strength level of its espresso.